and whether or not do we have testing protocols that are accurate and reliable? Is this a real threat? And does the industry, can they shut down the movement of feed and feed additives and still be able to maintain high quality diets? And that was an area that we landed that we probably don't have enough reason to cause shutdown there. And the impact on the industry, the negative impact might be more harmful than any perceived gain that we would get through taking action there right now. But we agreed to continue looking at science, continue analyzing, and figuring out where we not only moved on that issue, but many other issues as well. And so I think that that is something that's been a positive. We've also increased our conversations with Customs and Bureau Protection as we move forward. And we have increased the level of activity with our SITC group. And what that group is within APHIS is that's a group of inspectors that go around to ethnic markets and grocery stores, and they look at the mix of products that are in those, and they're trying to identify prohibited products that are making it some way into the United States even though they're prohibited. And as part of that, we've been able to identify, continue to identify, that's an active group that works all the time, but we've increased maybe our focus a little bit on meat products that might be of concern coming from China. And so when you saw the 1 million pound seizure in New Jersey a few weeks ago, that was a result of us identifying importers that we thought might be circumventing the system and asking CBP to tag those importers and take a look at some of their shipments. Now, while that made a big media splash, in reality it was probably about 38,000 pounds of pork-related products that were of concern, very much still prohibited, but they were like bouillon and noodle bowls that while it was still prohibited, it's been processed and probably the virus has been attenuated. It wasn't a real concern. It was candied pork that also had gone through a processing process that probably wasn't of concern, but nonetheless it's prohibited, so we want to lock down on that. We're going to continue to work in partnership with CBP. We're going to continue to do everything we can in cooperation with the industry to protect the pork industry. I think the last thing that I want to leave you with on that subject, though, is that the same epidemiology that we have relied on and used to protect ourselves from China with their endemic foot and mouth disease and their endemic classical swine fever is the same protocols that we're continue to rely on to keep African swine fever out. And we can point to a long record, over a century, of being able to use those programs and our vigilance at the border to protect ourselves from foot and mouth disease and many other diseases. And so I think that shows that the system has the opportunity to work, and hopefully with redoubling our efforts, we put more confidence into that as well. There are some parallels out there, though, that where the industry does have some levels of concern. You know, high path avian influenza marched across the Midwest very rapidly a few years ago. But I think that gave the poultry industry an opportunity to question its biosecurity protocols, the way they move feed in and products out of those poultry operations. And I think we've seen them take measures to try to address that. I think we've also, as PEDV moved across the Midwest a few years ago, the pork industry had the opportunity to take a look at some of those protocols that were in place and question whether or not they had sufficient biosecurity in place there. But I also think that we're not completely there domestically, because the last few summers we've had Seneca Valley virus that has continued to show up at our packing plants and cause disruptions at different times, some of it longer term, some of it more short term. But Seneca Valley virus presents itself like foot and mouth disease. And the fact that those hogs are showing up at slaughter facilities presenting those clinical signs tells us that not everybody is making the right decision and calling the vet at the right time when they load those hogs out, or else that they shouldn't be presenting themselves in the numbers that they have been in the past. So I think I want to challenge the leaders in this room, the veterinarians, the state veterinarians, the industry people in this room, to there's things we need to continue to challenge our producers to do the right thing, to not only protect themselves but to protect their industry. And maybe we've seen Seneca Valley so many times we think we know what it is, but I'm not sure that's the right decision we should be making in this day and age with the fear that we have about African swine fever out there. So I think we need to continue to challenge each other as we move forward. We also are working very closely, and I'm going to attend a symposium here in a few weeks in Canada to work with our North American partners to make sure that we're not only talking about African swine fever and making sure that all three nations are vigilant and working together and communicating, but there's also some other diseases that we can make progress on, and pests. On the southern border, cattle fever tick is an area that we want to be able to work together with Mexico to be able to address maybe some new tactics on both sides of the border to be able to continue to have an effective program in the U.S. that doesn't face pressure from Mexico all the time. And so we want to work there as well. I think that we also want to make some progress. I think we have good progress going on between us and Canada with movement of cattle, but I think we can do some things to electronically share data between the U.S. and Mexico to enhance the movement of animals there. And I've set some kind of aggressive goals for us at USDA to try to move forward with that electronic transfer that hopefully within the year, if not soon thereafter, we figured out how we can help facilitate that exchange of electronic data. And once that's in place, we could have a system where the information and the traceability we have on Mexican cattle might exceed the traceability we have within our domestic herd. And so I think that should redouble our drive and desire to be able to keep up with international countries within our domestic herd as well. And so maybe just a last couple of things to talk about before I jump into the beef side of it a little bit. As we look at other industries outside the animal industry and see what is going on in the fruit and vegetable industry and what some of the large retail chains are saying to us in that space, we have some of the very largest retailers telling the fruit and vegetable growers all over the world that they want traceability within the system here very soon, within 12 months. And that includes blockchain capability in some cases where they want to be able to use blockchain to trace that. Now, whether or not blockchain is the end-all answer, it's one that they've identified right now as a tool that they want to explore and try to use to manage that system. But I think that if they're successful within the produce industry of driving that forward, I think it's very likely that the meat industry is the next place that they're going to look to want to have traceability and demand traceability for products that are going to move into their retail outlets. And so that's another reason why I think that talk about traceability is getting more and more serious to the industry. And we're going to see those segments of the industry and those marketing systems that can embrace that traceability be able to be more successful in some of those retail chains that are expecting and going to be insisting on traceability. I think we're doing some great things in the state of Kansas, and Chelsea's here, that LMA has been a great partner with their cattle trace project, where they've done a pilot project that they're now outside of Kansas and embracing states all around them, as well as states in the southeast, to be able to see how a system of traceability can work between segments, between different marketing and arrangements and alignments. I think we're going to learn something, and I hope that that helps producers understand, especially cow-calf producers, understand how that impacts them. And I think that's an important step that we at USDA also need to work on, is how do we get out and talk to those cow-calf producers that probably are the most reluctant sector within the beef industry at embracing traceability and understanding why it is a value to them. And so later this fall, or hopefully later this summer, we hope to have some modules that USDA is able to work with animal health officials, with industry trade groups, to be able to go into states or maybe even into individual counties and talk about what traceability means to a cow-calf producer. Help a cow-calf producer in the sandhills of Nebraska understand that if we have foot and mouth disease in Kansas, he's not immune to the stop movement order that might be nationwide if we aren't able to pinpoint where the disease originated and how far it spread. And that means that maybe in the month of October, he won't be able to take that asset that he has in the calf crop and convert it to cash. That he's going to have to figure out an alternative that might mean weaning his calves that he doesn't have the facilities for, and then figuring out how he's going to feed those calves that he hasn't planned on for winter feed until we can lift that stop movement order. And anything we can do to show that he's not part of that disease chain or that disease risk, makes it a quicker process for us to be able to release his operation into interstate commerce again and help him convert that asset into cash. And I think those are the type of arguments and understandings that we haven't been effective in communicating. Will help them start feeling that they have something that is at risk and a reason to be involved. And then if we couple that down the road with the retail industry saying we have to have a certain level of traceability or else we're not going to allow your product into our meat case, that's going to start a case of sending signals through the marketplace that are financial signals that I think will help drive traceability as well. And maybe that's the role that NIAA helps us play, is how do we make the compelling arguments at the producer level that help embrace adoption and help them embrace a more open-minded approach to animal ID. How do we get the message out? I think we've done a great job talking to leadership groups. I think we've done a great job helping segments of the industry at the leadership level and at the animal health official level and state and federal government understand the importance of animal disease traceability. But I'm not sure at the cow-calf level we've been as effective at helping them understand their role and how they play into a system and what would be required of them and how we can help them become part of the traceability system. We're going to continue at USDA to work on figuring out how we facilitate between states and between segments of the industry the exchange of data and how we develop a network where we can query systems. It's the same 4 points that I probably talked about last year when I was here. I guess I was in Denver that time. But we need to figure out how we exchange data between states, between states and the federal government, how we maybe research the opportunities to look at private data systems to be able to query information from them, if that helps us get where we want, and how we also then enhance the overall ability to be able to use electronic health certificates to transfer information between states and the federal government as well. And I think those are parts of the puzzle that are the bedrock of a traceability system that we're working hard to have available as we look forward. So again, maybe just to recap, and then if there's time for a few questions, I'd be willing to take those. I think that there's lots of diseases out there that are of concern. There's lots of challenges within the animal industry where not only protecting, putting up a great system at the border is important, but where we put up systems to protect individual operations, our own operations, and we take responsibility for that as individual producers to be vigilant and not take unnecessary risks. And how we continue those up and down the line, I think, are just as important as maybe having the overall big systems in place, whether it be how we're going, what technology we're going to use, or multiple technologies, or what have you in that discussion. There's little components that matter. I think that partnerships are also very important, and maybe something that we haven't emphasized enough, or I haven't emphasized enough in this conversation. But working USDA to the industry, USDA to states, USDA to other countries around the world, I think is all part of the partnership that we're looking to form to be able to do that. I think there's partnerships within this room that have room to be strengthened to be able to help us continue to not only protect our livestock industry, but to drive traceability within that, because we know that consumers want to know. You look anywhere in the meat case, you look anywhere on a box of cereal, you can walk down any aisle in the grocery store, and there's some kind of a message on that that is trying to tell a consumer where that food ingredient came from, or where that item came from, or how it was produced. It might be non-GMO, it might be family farm, it's all kinds of terminology that we don't even know what means sometimes, or nobody, if you asked 6 people in this room, you might get 6 different impressions on what natural means, but they're trying to use that to communicate to a consumer. And so that tells us that there's value in communicating with our consumers and having messages that help them understand how their food was produced and where it comes from. So with that, I would say thank you, and if there's a few minutes, I would take a few questions.
Questions?
I'm not going to be shy. Never am. Undersecretary, I want to thank you and your team for the fact sheet we have this morning. We've been having conversations about a timeline, but I think it's really helpful to have a timeline in writing, so appreciate that. You hit on USDA, one of your core priorities is the ability to query or share the data that's currently sometimes held at the federal level and sometimes held in different states. Are there things that we as industry or state vets in the room can do to be supportive of that goal? What does that look like going forward?
I think that we have, I think states have 4 different management systems they're using right now, and we have varying levels of ability to exchange that information between states or between states and the federal government. So we're working right now to be able to build those software bridges that will allow us to exchange that information. That's going to help us with program diseases for sure. And so even managing program diseases, that's going to give us pieces of information along that that traceability trail. But I think that maybe another bridge that we need to work with, and then where you guys in the industry, because you have industry software that you use that contains data that in the event of an animal disease event would be very helpful in gathering non-program movements of animals, that I think that would love to have open up that conversation about how do we build those software bridges where we could maybe query and exchange that information only to protect, movement or protect disease spread, but have those in place. And I think that's somewhere where we could work together on some of our goals to have that communication be able to move.
I have a question concerning, if we're going to demand as a country that our producers identify all the cattle individually, I think road we're headed down, what are we going to tell those producers concerning cattle and or beef that's being imported into the United States? What are we going to tell them about the history of that product before it gets to the United States? Because having lived through the country of origin labeling, and we told those people, well, look, it's going to help you because your beef is going to be identified as coming from the United States, which in fact it wasn't ever, nothing I can find anyway. And we're going to tell them now we're going to do this, but probably country imported beef is not going to have to do that, or what are they going to have to do?
So I think what the opportunity for domestic producers through a traceability program is to be able to align with branded programs that is able to make claims about traceability, and so consumers that are interested in a product that is traceable, that is produced in Montana or Nebraska or Kansas, will be able to embrace that opportunity. And I think the other thing, though, that we have to help our producers understand is that we have the least coverage for traceability of any country in the nation, or in the world right now. People that are sending us product all have traceability systems that probably exceed ours. And for the live animals that we're bringing in from Mexico right now, I firmly believe that we have more traceability in those animals than we have in our domestic animals right now. And so for producers to be able to point at other countries and say that they're not up to our par, I don't think that's a fair assumption for a producer to make anymore.
I agree, except most producers don't know that.
And so that's part of the education process that we have to work with. We have to try to get that information out, and that's where I talked about earlier that we haven't done the job that we need to do as USDA. We haven't done the job we need to do as organizations and as animal health officials to get past this leadership level and get down to the rank and file producer and help them understand the reality of what's going on, not only in the world, but within their own state.
Time for one more burning question.
Thanks for your comments so far. You mentioned the Mexican feeder cow electronic data exchange. Do you have a goal or timeline to put that in place?
So what our big hurdle right now is to make sure that we have security in place, and Jack, nod your head no or yes if I get off track here, so that so that as we exchange that data, we don't have security risks going from one federal government system into another, and either be assured that they have the cybersecurity network and protections in place that we have in place, or we need to find a third party that we can transfer that data through. And so I've asked USDA, our Office of Chief Information Officer, to redouble and prioritize that within USDA to be able to figure out how we can get that done. My personal goal, or what I asked him, was for by the end of the year. I don't know if we'll make it or not. It's a pretty important hurdle to be able to be sure we cleared, because we don't want to, put our data or our information systems at risk at USDA. But if we don't set some type of a deadline, it's always in the future, so.
We appreciate your time and your willingness to interact and your commitment to traceability. We also want to thank USDA in advance for tomorrow's seminar. We're kind of going to start today and try not to duplicate what's going to be covered tomorrow. Sign-in sheet is making it around. Rick, who has not had the sign-up sheet? Okay, who's got it? Send it, if you could send it that way, we appreciate that. So next we'll move on. We're very pleased to have, we say a lot, somebody doesn't need any introduction, but Dr. Jack Shear, who is the Deputy Administrator, Chief Veterinary Officer for the U.S., has spoken to our group many times. This is old stomping grounds in Iowa, a couple of degrees from Iowa State, I believe, Jack. So have Dr. Shear come.
As Boyd said, this is where I'm from. I spent a lot of time in Iowa. I love coming back here. A lot of people are like, why do you like Iowa? You always like home. It's just a basic fact of life. So I'm going to try to get down to some brass tacks of some information as we go through this. And I'm going to basically talk about a few things. I want to talk about the ADT initiatives and our goals. So first I'm going to talk about trace performance measures that we have implemented and where we're at with that, and how that's changed. Then I want to talk about some of our work with electronic certificates and veterinary inspection. Then our IT initiatives, which are always difficult, and as Undersecretary Iowa said, if we don't put dedicated timelines on that, we don't seem to make progress. And then finally, the ADT General Standards document, which many of you have in front of you, and you can take with you and read through that, because it kind of outlines some of the stuff we're doing. So first I want to talk about our timeline, and I want you to look at these dates. That's in the document that you have also, but let's just go over it briefly. So first you see there that there's going to be a discontinuation of free meal ear tags at the end of this year. Okay, that's a fast, pretty hard deadline. Now, we worked with the National Assembly of State Animal Health officials to kind of put this together about what would be workable. Not everybody is there. Not everybody feels like that's the way to do it. And there's a lot of concern about the fact that we haven't identified what the specifications of the technology is. We've chosen not to do that, to keep an open platform, because everything changes with time, and as technology moves forward, we don't want to be solidified into one and not be able to have the flexibility to move to the next. Now the concern is that if we go to electronic ID, that we'll eliminate that eventually in the low frequency, because that's out there. We've never said that. We are eliminating the metal ear tag because it's just not functional. You can't use it to retire tags. They're often hard to read. They're just a difficult system. It worked well in brucellosis, but it's not working well for us now. And to have a bookend system, you have to be able to retire those tags. So that's the first date. Then, if you look down further, you'll be able to continue to purchase tags until next year, 2020. Then, a year after that, we'll no longer apply or sell the metal tags. So that's an important date too. So you got to start to think about what you're doing with your tagging system. By 2023, it will be strictly RFID. Again, not specifying the technology of that RFID, but saying on what's in 9 CFR about what animals need to be tagged, they're going to have to be electronically tagged. So what we're doing here is basically defining our timeline. We're supporting the infrastructure to do this by cooperative agreements that we're doing both with the states and in the plants or the slaughter establishments. There's a cost share plan for the RFID tags, and I'm going to go over that in just a minute. We're working on IT modernization. Well, what does that look like? How do we get there? And what we need to do for data sharing. We're improving our electronic CVI system. I know the states are working on a system too. Many states are close to what they want to use. There'll be different systems out there. We're going to have ours. And then, as always, we have to do more outreach and education. We talked about that. How do you get to the guy that has the pitchfork in his hand every day? I think we reach out to a lot of the commodity groups. We feel like that information gets out there. But what we find is it really doesn't. And we have to do a better job, probably, of going out and doing it ourselves. And we talked about modules. I spent some time with different commodity groups here in Iowa this week. And it was interesting that they asked me questions that I know we distributed the information on. And I find that whenever I go to meetings, that just doesn't get down to the producer level. We got to do a better job of that. We can't always rely on the commodity groups, and it's a large job for them to do anyway, so we shouldn't really depend on that. I want to talk a little bit about the trace performance measures. The trace performance measures are one of 6 priority categories that the states, we ask the states to conduct in regards to the cooperative agreements, and we give them funds to show us how they're doing in tracing their animals. If we look at trace performance measures and look at this chart, we can see that through the years there's been great improvement. You look at those hours of how long on average it took people to trace tags. You can see that's gone down through the years. To year 4, we're at 47 versus, what's that, 490, which is just unmanageable. We did make some changes in how we implement these exercises. So based on the size of the animals in the state, the numbers of cattle, the states may do between 4 and 10 of these exercises a year. And that's where we send them tags, we ask them to trace them. We used to send them without any type of advanced information, which many states got busy, didn't have time to trace it. So to make it more realistic, we tell the states when we're sending the tag numbers and the trace performance measures, then they can treat it like a real outbreak, like they're looking for a diseased animal and they take the time out and work. So it's more realistic, and it also helps them in the measures. Many times we'd send these trace tests, and they'd be busy with many other things, and that drove the numbers up. So this is really a more realistic way of looking at it. I want to talk a little bit about electronic certificates of veterinary inspection. This is something that we've been working on, and the states have been working on, the state vets and other folks in private industry for some time. We want to expand the use of these. This is the future. We want everything to go electronic and digital eventually. And we're using some of this technology at the border. It's one of our main priorities. So we want to be able to take that ECVA data and share it and adopt it and use our mobile information management system to scan documents, scan animals, produce a document, and make it electronically transferable not only to the point of receivership, but point of destination, but from the point of its implementation. This will, if you add to that digital signature, we can do everything by computer and everything, and mistakes with MEMS and transfer data, it's pretty accurate, 90%. There's no more, we mislabel a tag because of human error. applications are important. We want to be able to message with the states and private systems. We want to have a web interface that's more friendly for people to use. And we want mobile applications of all the certificates so that we can get this done quickly. We are supporting the states again through ADT cooperative agreement funds to help them implement in advance the use of the ACBI and increase the volume of these type of electronic records. IT, I don't even like to talk about IT. It gives me vapors. That's what Lincoln used to say when he was in the Civil War. It gives me vapors. But in addition to the work on the ACBIs, we are incorporating and contracting and utilizing many folks to beef up our systems and make them better. Undersecretary Ibal has said, and he said it today, if you listen closely, he's not going to accept that, well, we're going to extend the deadline or the deadline slipped. So we have meetings with IT all the time, and I just look at him and say, you're going to tell Undersecretary Ibal that you didn't get this done. They don't like to hear that. So I'm hoping that we can keep them on task and we can move forward with what we need in these systems. Our MEM system, very important. Can't afford slippage snap. It's the centerpiece. Our VSPS system has to be updated, and we're pushing hard to move forward on these initiatives. I just got to look to make sure I'm on the right slide. We ever talked the other day, and I was on the wrong slide the whole time. People were looking at me like, what's he talking about? A little bit on electronic records. The Animal Health Events Repository, we call it AHR, is an APHIS database that serves as a digital index to find where tag numbers are seen. Essentially, it's an index for finding source data for traceability. AHR will capture 5 key elements from state private databases. Those 5 elements are the date of the sighting, the date of the sighting, the event type, such as a health certificate, the location, it may be where the producer's PIN or the PIN, the state where the state PIN resorted for the tag or where the PIN was issued, and also where the state where the sighting took place, and then the database where additional data can be found. We partnered with states of Colorado and Michigan to pilot a data sharing and integration of these key elements for USA herds and AHR. So we've been working to make sure that our systems coordinate and work with other systems. Again, we provide cooperative agreement funding to the states to support information sharing between their systems and our system. APHIS has a contract in process, and as I spoke about before, for the mobile information management system for data collection and integration information between systems. So that's a system that we can use out in the field and at its best, if it works, scan animals at the site, transfer that data to a laptop or a phone possibly if this really starts to work. It creates a system that can then be transferred to an electronic certificate, then it can be digitally signed and sent to the destination and kept at the source. It's pretty impressive stuff, and that's really, other countries are doing this, why can't we get there? We gotta get there. So, move on. A little bit about electronic tags themselves. We're not choosing the source or the technology. You've heard that many times. We're making it possible for the technology that's out there to be utilized and developed based on set standards that we're going to put forward. So today you got to have low frequency, you got to have ultra high frequency, but it'll have to meet the the standards for RFID that we set. Now, we've worked with the state animal health officials also to develop a cost share for RFID, which is something everybody's asked about. We want to support producers and veterinarians in the transition from metal tags to the use of RFID. So what the plan is, the proposal sits like this. Yes, we'll work with manufacturers to develop a discount code for a specific number of RFID tags per state. The states will define how to distribute and improve the use of the discount codes, similar to how they do the metal tags today for distribution and record keeping. USDA will provide 1/3 of the cost of these tags, and the state will pay for the other 2/3 of the cost. Now, you say, well, that's really not fair to the states, but the cost recovery has to be up to the state to get the final third from the producer or the veterinarian, or however they distribute the tag. Now, we're not going to leave the states high and dry. We're going to assist with this. Again, we'll use cooperative agreement money and provide this and to try to assist them in getting what they need done. We're continuing to work through the details of this and holding conversations with the tag manufacturers, because as I said, as the technology changes, we're going to be looking at other tags. They're going to have to get those tags approved through a system to meet our specifications, but that will move forward. Now, Dr. Frazier, the state vet for Alabama, is going to be giving us some talk on the transition to EIDs and the cost share issues. So he'll go into more detail than I am. So I want to go into a little bit about the ADT General Standards document. So APHIS's ADT staff has spent a lot of time updating this document in order to assure that the quality of the devices are approved. They've established requirements comparable to other countries, such as Australia and Canada. You want my picture? I'm going to pose. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, they're always bad pictures, aren't they? Like you just got done chewing a lemon. So to move forward, we want to establish requirements again that are comparable to other countries such as Australia and Canada. We want to reduce the length of time for the first entry into the marketplace. We want to expand guidelines to support UHF devices. We want to produce or provide an option for device approval. That's really important. For companies having a track record and data for devices used in official ID outside of the United States, because that's always a complaint we get that, well, they do this in Canada, they do this in Australia, why can't we do it? The revised standards are in process and of a final review by APHIS to be followed up with a final review by the Office of General Counsel, that's our legal folks. The accompanying revised tag application form requires the Office of Management and Budget to approve the information that we're actually asking to collect. That takes time also. So because of that, we're close to finalizing that process, and we'll have new standards in draft format to potential manufacturers at their request. But again, this will be draft. This will provide the new tag application requirements for manufacturers to begin testing, conducting field trials, and gathering other requirements for compiling their applications. This has been something we've been asked about repeatedly. A little bit about collection of ID at slaughter. We talked about a bookend system. We want to put a tag in an ear at the point of origin or before it moves off the farm. So for that framework to work, we have to utilize a system that is trackable and traceable, and that's not a metal ear tag. We we tried to retire middle layer tags, it was a phenomenal failure because it's so difficult, it takes so much time. Many of the tags that came in weren't readable. The numbers wear off. So the collection of ID at slaughter has been important to us because that's the retirement age, the retirement stage, and it's a high priority and it's a gap that we're currently working on to rectify. We have developed processes to retire the tags that are collected using the mobile information management system again. We've retired greater than 4 million tags so far, and we're working with cold cow slaughter plants to provide RFID readers in exchange for their data. We have 9 that have signed on to do that in all of us. So people say to me, well, you're more pilots. Well, we continue to do pilots to find out how to do it better and how to do it right, whether it's even going to work. A little bit about premises identification. This has been an interesting process. We've had prem IDs for some time. There's still a resistance to it. Part of it, that resistance is difficult to get. So hard to pull down, and people don't understand the process. We want to simplify that. So we're in the process of working on a system that we can put up on our website where there's a map, you check in on the map, you use that map to obtain your official premises ID number. It gets you started for what's needed in your individual state. It's interactive. Different producers can use it. You don't have to be an IT specialist to use the system. It's state specific, and it's a good resource for them to obtain their PIN in a simple manner. Now, we haven't got this up yet, but it's close. We're waiting for approvals to move it forward. Lastly, I'd like to talk about our request for proposal for pilot projects and how that's been progressing. Many of you know last year we obtained $1 million to use for cooperative agreement funding to support ADT projects for EID use in cattle, specifically the use of back tags, ultra-high frequency back tags. We want to submit an RFP, which will come out soon, either early this spring or late this spring or early this summer, that will basically outline the parameters for people to apply to participate in pilot projects. We look for 2 to 5 projects out of this money, so we can look at the cost effectiveness of collecting these key pieces of data and the traceability needs and utilization of these back tags in conjunction with other types of ID systems. So we're going to look at how they function, these ultra-high back tags function with other types of RFID and movement and how they can be used at the speed of commerce. So that's kind of some guidelines of what we're going to be looking at. Both states, tribes, industry, and academic groups can apply for these projects. As I said, we'll be getting the information out late this spring or early this summer. That concludes my talk. I do appreciate the time, and I'm going to take questions if there is.
A microphone.
Anything difficult, I refer to Undersecretary Eyeball this time.
I didn't do that.
I know.
Dr. Shear, Dr. Cobb, Bob Cobb from Georgia. Thank you.
I know who you are, Bob.
I want to go on record. Thank you for this. Thank you for bringing this out and moving forward. This is a big step. And there's one thing I'd like for you to address that maybe I missed it. You were talking about getting the premise ID is so important, but also the obtaining an AI manager. How to we need more of those guys, because these people are going to want to be ordering tags, and they need to have access to those AI managers. We talked about the states doing this, but there'll be people ordering directly from the tag manufacturers themselves too, and they'll need to go through an AI manager. Is there discussion about streamlining that, how that's obtained, make it easier in other words?
I think we're talking about it, I don't think we have the answers for that yet. But I referred back to the process that we use for the mill tags. We hope that some of that works. We're also hoping that, you know, if you kind of look at how we did scraping tags through the years, that worked very well. There's a system that whenever we record those, we order those. I don't know if I have the personnel that could sit and take the tag orders and make sure that the state's got them, but I'm hoping in conjunction with the cooperative agreements and how we're doing this, that we can work through this in each individual state and make sure it gets done. We're there to help, and we're going to do what we can. You know, everybody's short-staffed, it seems like, but this is so important that we're going to make an effort to make sure that we work with each state and make it happen.
Other questions?
I could probably don't.
Did she have a question on her? She's done, isn't she? Hi, Chelsea.
Chelsea, good.
I know you.
I thought you might. So just first, as point of clarification, and I think I'm reading this correctly, with the timeline and the transition to RFID, we're talking about that currently covered population of animals, correct?
Correct.
Thought so, but just always helpful to clarify. The part that do have a question about then is, you mentioned, and this talks about the tag should be applied at the time of birth or before the animal moves off the farm in interstate commerce.
Yep.
How does that square with the currently covered component?
I guess I don't understand the question. I think what we're saying is if you're moving that animal, you better have a tag.
I think she's also probably wondering what the role that the livestock auction market.
Yeah, so
Based in that tag initially.
Undersecretary Eyeballs read my mind. Almost two things. The animals often in the beef side become covered after they've left that farm of origin at some point. They become covered when they are 18 months of age and older, sexually intact, and moving interstate. And so your first point at which they're covered under the laws, probably not the farm of origins. That's half of it. And then the other half of it is, what if it is a covered animal, they're moving off the farm, but they're moving to an approved tagging site? Can they become identified once they get to that approved tagging site, oftentimes a livestock market?
I think that's still in our records, but there's some of these loopholes that we're going to want to close because it makes it difficult to approved tagging sites. A lot of folks don't understand how that works, and we want to make sure that we're not putting burden on anybody with our process. We want that to go back to the farm of origin as much as possible.
And I think our membership would prefer that animals come in identified, but if they have producers they work with that aren't going to tag on farm, they still want some ability to work with producers and to partner and bring them into compliance.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I just heard at breakfast this morning, I heard that 60% of animals at one particular market coming unidentified. These are CFR covered animals that aren't being identified. We don't want to put the burden for the police action of this on the markets. We've got to work together to figure out how to do that. If that means, I know when we go out on a disease trace or anything, we put those tags in federally. That's kind of on the state side. A lot of them are doing that. So we want to make sure we can help with that. I don't know how we're going to get there 100%, but the other part of compliance is complaint driven. And so we're going to have to deal with those complaints to get the compliance and to get that done. Now I understand that a lot of farms can't put tags in there. They don't have the facilities. I understand that. So if markets are willing to work with us on that and put some tags in, I don't want that to be a complete burden, but we expect that they show up with tags. And if they don't, there should be a tagging agreement, either with that market or that process is going to happen. Because the next process is when that animal does move interstate, it better have tagging here. Because we're coming not after the market, we're coming after the veterinarian, or the OTC. they're gonna press this, I think, in the markets, the veterinarians, especially if you got a market vet, he's gonna say, I'm not signing anything until they take tags in their ears, because I can't lose my accreditation. So, thanks, Chelsea.
Good morning, Dr. Shearer, Ernie Birchmeyer, Michigan Farm Bureau. How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I almost wanted to stand up and do a happy dance back here. It wouldn't be an animal ID discussion at these meetings if I didn't get up and make a comment, I guess. And my comment this morning is thank you. As most people know, we've been dealing with this in a similar structure, similar format for a long time. And I'll make the statement that I've made many times over, it works. And it works because we collaborate. It works because we work through the process, we find a way to make it work, and when we find challenges, we sit down and find ways to work it out. And I firmly believe that when the system is fully implemented, the livestock industry in the United States of America will be better off because we have the ability to track and trace the livestock, help protect animal health, and help commerce continue to move forward. So I think the outline that you laid forward and put out in front of us this morning is exactly the kind of system that we can operate within the livestock industry in this country that will help to achieve the goals that the industry has been asking for quite some time. So thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate that comment. And I'll say this too, and I think about this keeps me up at night. If we, and Undersecretary Hyba talked about this, but I want to re-emphasize it. Let's throw everything else, all our domestic programs away about traceability. Who cares? That's in the past, right? Let's just say we don't worry about it. We've solved all the disease problems in the United States. We don't have any more domestic disease, it's great. Why do we need an ID system? I get asked that all the time. If we get foot and mouth disease in this country, or any high consequence disease, nothing moves for a while. And in order to move things and to regionalize and to tell the rest of the world that our products are safe, we have to have an ID system. I can't test and move your animals unless I can ID them. And that's going to be critical when the big one hits, if it hits. Now everybody says, well, we haven't had foot and mouth disease since 1929. Well, we didn't have PED either, and it went through the country rather rapidly. We're getting these viruses, these introductions, which is what scares the commodity groups. We get them all the time. We've had 7 or 8 new viruses introduced in the United States in the last year. How'd they get here? I don't know, but I'm concerned. So I want to be prepared with the system. And Congress asks me this all the time. If I sure is it time to go mandatory? I get that question. I say, no, it's not. We're working with the industry, we're working with the states, we're getting there. Well, what if we get a major disease? We're getting there. Well, we got a system. It's maybe not be as fast as we want to be with it, what it would be with EID, but we're getting there. So what I would say is I really appreciate the work and the fact that the industry has moved to where they are now. It's amazing how far we've come. And that's not to go on appreciated. I appreciate my staff. They work really hard, and I just wanted to introduce a couple of them. Sarah Tomlinson is here. Stand up. I want to see you. She's the brain trust. She wrote this talk. I never take credit for what she did. Aaron Scott, where are we at, Aaron? I'm missing my IT guy. Where is he? Randy? Randy Munder. So those guys work really hard. There's a lot of headaches that come with this program, a lot of negotiation, a lot of listening, but we still got a lot to do. We've got to get out, like we said, and reach these folks. So again, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Dr. Shearer, do you have time for one more?
It's up to the monitor here.
One more question.
Tom Jones from Arkansas Farm Bureau, and I almost hate to ask this question after all the good comments that have been made, but as a southern cow-calf producer, not quite as advanced as some other states, let me give you a hypothetical that the industry just doesn't quite get it together. Are you bound by an animal disease outbreak to protect us from ourselves? Or at some point can you say, you have to do ID, get it done, get over all the whatevers, or are you only bound by telling us that after we have the disease?
I'll answer that this way. I've had continuing and extended problems getting funding for indemnity and those types of programs from the Office of Management budget because I don't have good biosecurity in some of my programs, I don't have good traceability in some of my programs, so at some point they're going to say to me, Dr. Shear, no, we're not doing that. They won't say that in a major disease outbreak, but they will say it for our domestic programs. I'm already struggling for many of our major disease programs to get the indemnity to deal with our domestic outbreaks. And I don't want to go there. I don't want to have to say there's dots all over the United States of TB because I can't get funding because OMB won't fund it. That's critical because eventually, if I'm the European Union, I'm looking at those dots saying, you really don't have a TB program, do you, Dr. Shear? You've got dots of infection all over your country. I need to clean those dots up. And states don't want them hanging out there either. So, yeah, it's important that we have an ID system. It's important we have good traceability, good biosecurity, so that we can get rid of domestic diseases beyond the major outbreak. If the major one comes, we're going to tag everything. It's going to happen. You're just not going to have a choice. So let's get there now and take care of what we have to take care of so that we can continue to trade. It's interesting, I think, this is another thing that Undersecretary Iowa said, we're a major exporting country. We have the poorest traceability in the world. We gotta fix it. And you guys are there, you're ready. We just gotta get everybody else to go with us. So I hope that answers your question. You're welcome.
Don't get Mike and Dr. Shear.
Everybody sign in sheet, hopefully. It's my pleasure now to introduce my good friend, Dr. Tony Frazier, state vet from Alabama since 2001, I believe. He has been serving as chair of a small group of state veterinarians that has been working with USDA to come up with some of the logistics. So we asked Tony to come talk, and we didn't know we were going to be so fortunate to bring you the case study and ability to tell something through a story from yesterday's lunch meeting. Tony Frazier, I think he represents everything they talked about.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. Clicker is right here, right? Thank you again to the leadership of NIAA for inviting us to be here to be on this program. Excited to be a part of the solution. Maybe say this a couple of times before we done in repetition, but we're always looking for opportunities to be optimistic. Why aren't you writing that down? That's my own thought. I mean, I made that up. And to the Undersecretary, thank you for your help and leadership, and to Dr. Shear, y'all really, I could just say, you're dismissed. You would have heard our thoughts on the EID working group transition. So I do thank them that thought that put this working group together. Now, before we get started, I'm sure you're curious as to what this slide is about. Okay. The story within stories within stories. Okay, this is a, if you look in the background, there's two tubes there that, well, for BSE samples, that's not what the story is about. That's a candle. And guys, I want you to learn a lesson from me here, please. That my wife bought and set on my desk in a little study area at our house. Okay, hold on one second. I wanted to be sure that I had this exactly right. That my wife left this candle at my desk. Here's the story. And I look on this candle, I'm like, why is she, I'm supposed to be the other way around, right? So, on this candle, there's two things, Undersecretary, that this candle says. It calms the mind to encourage relaxation. And the second thing that it does is it creates a sense of harmony. It's on the bottom of that thing right there. So I get thinking about that. And listen, Dr. Thomas, I mentioned just a minute ago, we guys, we overthink some stuff a little bit sometimes. Got to thinking about that, and I said to my wife, thank you for this. As I read about this candle here, it says that if I create this sense of relaxation, am I going to get a little harmony after a while? Y'all with me on that? Hey, I got a hormone or two still left. She said, no, it was half price at Bath and Body Works, and this room smells like your butt. Yeah. So, as we go through the rest of the meeting, and maybe the rest of this talk, you be encouraged to feel relaxed and a sense of harmony, because that's all you're going to get. Let this story within the story remind us, especially as guys, we tend to overthink some things sometimes, certainly within some of these activities that we've had going on with animal disease traceability. This is some cattle in Alabama, maybe a month or so ago. Sorry to some of our partners and friends. We're already greening up a little bit. I got another picture down here in just a second, but I don't know if you can see it, but there is a brand on this cow. And these are the kind of cattle that we're looking at, not only in Arkansas, but in Alabama, Southeast. That need traceability. The need traceability, we understand that. Producers probably somewhat think about that occasionally. That's about as diplomatic as I can be. But I'm going to look at this old gal right here, boys. She will get in your shirt pocket. Are you with me on that? She's looking for the opportunity to put a tag on you. You with me? So this is what we know. This is a state perspective, okay? And we know these things are going on, and we go forward. This is reality. So back at the USAHA meeting, we were asked to from the National Assembly Executive Committee, Executive Council, to put together a working group with two ideas to go forward with. That was around the transition to EID technology and then a potential cost share project. These are if I miss somebody's name that was on the state or the National Assembly, please forgive me, but your name should be on here. Some of these in this area I cannot pronounce from the South. So we do appreciate the hard work, but the opportunity, and I did mention Dr. Tomlinson and Dr. Aaron Scott has already been mentioned, y'all, their team. We set about a conference call. Listen, every Monday since USAHA, we've been having a conference call, except for maybe we took off Christmas, week of Christmas or so. But the dedication to not only our veterinary services team and partners, but to our state partners can't be recognized enough. There was difference of opinions. There's differences among states. There's differences among the country. But for example, my good friend in Rhode Island, Dr. Marshall, yes, there's 25 cows in Rhode Island. Just kidding. And then there's all voodoo in Texas, cattle in other parts of the country as well. So we this working group certainly on our state, we had to realize that, we need to not just put forward thoughts, comments, agreements, disagreements from our perspective, but also from representing the rest of the country, if you will. And Mr. Undersecretary, there's some things that we going through this working group and the conference call, that we kind of realized that that's a pretty good idea. This just won't work. And that's what we hopefully learned from one of the lessons, I think maybe this young lady speaking this morning, or maybe yesterday, but I can't remember. But I can't remember if I got on my underwear or not either, so. Y'all come on now. We're gonna be here a while, but we don't last a little bit. It is that if there's some opportunities. I'm not even looking for opportunities to be optimistic, but there's going to be some things that just ain't going to work. And so that might, you might think is a failure, but it's really not. Then we learn from that and go to the next step, right? Y'all with me on that, right? So the two primary objectives that we had were to look for ways to transition from the metal ear tags to electronic tags. And listen, your Farm Bureau members of partnership here, there's a young man that has just come to our state. He's new, he's just a bright young man. He will be over and I was telling someone else about that this morning, I think Dr. Shear, but he will be the chairman of our beef commodity group in our state. He and Dr. Edmondson, who's here with me in my office, we had a meeting with him a week or so ago. And the young man, bright young man, he had never touched or put his hand on a metal ear tag. He didn't know exactly what they were. Okay, so we're at a good position, I think. Some old thing we have in Alabama, we have erected in one part of the state. There's a monument to this thing called the boll weevil. Okay, y'all heard of that? And the cotton and the pink, so they erected a monument in Enterprise, Alabama, to a bug, the boll weevil. Had it not been for the boll weevil, we would not move from cotton to peanuts. Okay? Well, we've erected a monument to the metal ear tag in Alabama. Why are y'all laughing about that? That's true. This is a boat anchors. So we want to move past that. By the way, I'm going to get through my 300 slides, whether y'all like it or not. I'm kidding. So this is a brochure that we put out several years ago, and y'all did this in your states, I'm sure, when the state animal health officials. We put out this brochure, had all our names and stuff. It's a folded thing. We gave it away at the stockyards, Chelsea, at the Tupperware parties and Sunday school class, everywhere we could find anybody that could fog up a mirror. We gave them one of these brochures, and we listed the three kind of ID, there's the metal ear tag and the 840 tags down here, who to call and what to do, and you can fill out this on the back side of this to get your print ID number. We were really forward thinking, we thought. And so we've had to change this now because we're going to take this picture off of our little brochure, but we would just a visual. We want to move from the highly successful down through the years, 40 years, 50 years use of this tag over to an electronic system. Now let me tell you, when I started with the state as a VMO, we had brucellosis in Alabama. Yes, we did. We did the live field strain brucellosis in our state when I started as a VMO. And you think, well, you're an old man, and you'd be right, but we had it in our state, and you know what? We traced every one of those cows, and we retested them every 60 to 120 days, depending on if you're on next line of contact or not, with a metal ear tag. Yeah, we did. It took hours, and we had a veterinary services epidemiologist, Dr. Don Cheatham. Some of you may remember Dr. Cheatham's name. He single-handedly organized test chart every day, all of a metal ear tag. Okay, he went home one night and his own dog bit him. He'd been home and just spent all his time tracing and looking for metal ear tags. Okay, it can work. It can work. It's just not going to work today, right? Okay. So you've already seen the timeline, and again, we had asked this specifically from the working group. We went back and forth, but listen, this didn't just happen like, oh, here's a couple of thoughts and a couple of ideas. Here, we want this timeline. This took this took Monday after Monday after Monday with collaboration, working back and forth. Thatch Winslow. This won't work, Dr. Frazier. This is what we need to think about. Here's what we need to think about. Dr. Bob Cobb from the Southeast. With Dr. Rob Hall from Oklahoma. If I miss somebody, please don't get mad at they're coming to me. This took many hours of careful thought to advance what we know we all need to do, but at the same time be thoughtful in the process. And you see, you got this is the same roadmap that's now in front of you. We asked for this specifically, and we now have it. So we're grateful for that and grateful for the opportunity to participate. Now let's talk about this cost share in just a second. And this may cause you maybe a little, I started to say constipation, but I mean consternation, whatever the word may be for you. So the cost share program, that was the two objectives that we were trying to accomplish. And so during this transition period, over the next couple of 3 years, that we have been informed that Veterinary Services, USDA, will make an effort to get tags into cattle or to the animals that need to be tagged. Do we need to go over that again? In TFR, rodeo stock, show animals, all dairy cattle, beef cattle 18 months of age and over, crossing state lines, and in our state to change ownership. Okay, we have that already in Alabama. Okay, so these are the animals that need to be tagged, officially identified, and we have direction, and we were to debate this idea of a cost share project. And listen, if you can come up with another scenario that we haven't looked at, I'll challenge you. And we debated that thing so many times, so many different ways, either the cooperative agreements, a tax credit, kiss some more babies, whatever we've got to do to get the tags into producers. I got a couple of closing thoughts here in just a second. What we want to, again, add maybe priorities to getting this done, but generally speaking, this is how we 50,000 foot, and all the details have not been worked out. Dr. Tomlinson and Dr. Scott are going to have their team that'll I think maybe get a little more granular as we go forward. But listen, we want to get discounted tags, if you will, into cattle that need to be tagged. Now, let me pause right here for a second. On the state side, here's what we face. We ask this question, well, what cattle need to be tagged? What are the cattle that need to be tagged in your state? Well, pretty frankly, the state veterinarians, all of them. We want them all tagged. If you want us to do a true, Dr. Shear, disease traceability system, then all the cattle need to be tagged. Okay? So that's optimal. We know that just can't always happen. So let's just again focus for a little bit on those cattle 9 CFR that absolutely need to be tagged. Those are going across state lines. Veterinarians got a right health certificate for them. Show, rodeo stock. Okay. However, there's one little caveat to that, if you will. Sometimes, Mr. Undersecretary, in your opening comments, I picked up on that. By the way, did y'all notice he didn't use PowerPoint? What the crap? That's some good. I can't go to the bathroom without a good PowerPoint presentation. But natural disasters, flooding, drought, and for us in the South, hurricanes, the shift in the market, maybe cattle are worth more or less, and so that can determine how cattle should or could move, as opposed to those 25 cows that just out in the pasture. You follow me? So if we try to just sit here and define, okay, only the cattle that are going across the state line today that need to be tagged, sure. But we've got to also keep in the back of our mind as state animal health officials that could change within a couple of days, maybe with a hurricane bearing down on Florida that needs to move cattle across the state line into Alabama or to Georgia. Drought from Texas, Oklahoma moved a lot of cattle into Alabama. Okay. Now, we're gonna assist, both the producer, the goal is to assist producers, markets, and accredited veterinarians. We want to, it's already been mentioned by Dr. Shear, that USDA is gonna do a lot of the heavy lifting, contracting with the tag manufacturers. They're gonna develop that, and we'll also determine the amount that, if you don't mind, Dr. Shear, I'm gonna kind of redirect just a little bit of your comments. They were all right on target, but to say according to the working group, what we've not exactly been spelled out, and y'all don't get mad at us. If you do get mad, then we'll take it outside, but just hang on just a second. We'll say it like me and Dr. Emerson, you're going to go outside with me. She whoop your butt. No. Is that it's not completely done yet, Dr. Thomason. Look, is it going to be 30 cents off of a tag? Well, what we kind of proposed back in the working group, that maybe we consider a 30% off of a tag, a discount of 30%, or maybe it's 40%, depending on how much money they're going to be able to get and your budget will allow. I'm talking about the undersecretary, right? So we're not exactly sure yet what that discount is going to be, but that's okay. I think it's pointed out one time, hey, a discount is a discount. That's a good government program. Give what we can get in this transition period, okay? In addition to that, once that is determined, that percentage is worked out, then the states will be receiving a certain number, we'll call them coupons, if you will, if you want to call it credits or whatever the terminology. That, again, doesn't really matter, is that the states will get a determined amount, that's still to be determined yet. Listen, some states are not using metal ear tags at all now. We understand that. They will develop a system, and I asked Dr. Tomlinson and Dr. Aaron, who will determine it? And she said, do you remember the Raiders of the Lost Ark movie, Tony? At the very end, y'all remember that movie? Well, he said, we've got top people working on it. And he said, what, who, what? He said, top people. Dr. Thompson assures us that they have top people working on that. Okay? And then we're going to develop a unique number code for each state. The state will decide how you distribute those coupons to become discounted tags. So the vision is, I'm not going to get too granular right here again, but there will be a unique code. Producer calls your office, or accredited veterinarian calls my office. A really sharp young lady's going to answer the phone, and I'm going to inquire about the discounted tags. Okay, what are you going to be there? Well, we got a load of steers going to Texas. Well, you know they really don't require official ID. Oh, but you do need a health certificate. Oh, well, thank you. We go to the next call. With me, follow me. So I've got 2 bulls going to Texas for whatever reason. Texas really needs our bulls in Alabama. Thank you, Andy. So the veterinarian may call and say, I got 2 bulls going to Texas. I want to require about this low-cost tag. Yes, here's your code. You decide which manufacturer. That each manufacturer most likely will have their own manufacturer code. So you choose. Hey, I want to put those ultra high frequency, Dr. Justin Smith. I want to put the ultra high frequency. Then you decide, and you can use that code. Call that manufacturer and order your tags. And the producer is going to then pay for the rest of the tag. Okay. Quiet. Thank you. The candle's burning. Y'all, the candle's burning. Is the candle burning now? You relax? Do you feel harmony? Okay. And then there's got to be some sort of reporting system. We understand that. Don't really like it. Again, one of those things we don't really like. The state don't need another report. To be honest with you, we don't need another report, but we understand that when there's money involved, the taxpayers need to know, and we will be a part of the reporting system. That will feedback. We've asked Dr. Scott and Dr. Thomas to develop a simple project, a simple of a system to report back the number of these discounted tags that we use and who they go to, either directly to a producer, potentially to a livestock market, to a accredited veterinarian. And by the way, if you're in the room here, stay down and help fish you're holding your breath, about to pee in your pants, and you choose to use a certain number, all the coupons, and you want to buy those tags, and you want to distribute it yourself, I think that would be allowable, or at least negotiable, okay? So if you want to do all that yourself as a state veterinarian and hand them out, and you figure out how you're going to charge more or less for the tag, that can be up to you. Now, there's been a couple of questions about asking. I'm going to just go back over very briefly why we're doing this from a state perspective. Oh, I'm supposed to stay here by the microphone. I told a young lady yesterday here in Iowa that my son was participating at Auburn University on the soil judging team. And she looked at me and she said, what exactly do they judge the soil for? I said, well, all sorts of things. She said, how does he judge the soil? I said, well, they go to look at different types of soil. They look at what is made up in there. Is it sand? She said, what exactly do you mean by soil? I said, well, I mean dirt. And she said, oh, you mean soil. Anyway, if I missed a spoken word, I apologize for Southern. This is a veterinarian in Alabama taking a BSE sample. Okay, and right down here we see this lovely helper. These are the reasons why the state perspective we need. I've just got a couple of these. This is a cow that came visited. A group of these brain sniffers came to us from Texas. This cow is so eat up with malignant catarrhal fever she couldn't see. She didn't know where she was at. Malignant catarrhal fever. I know it's no longer a foreign animal disease, thank you. But this is why we need traceability. These are two reasons we need traceability. I don't know about foot and mouth disease. I hope we never deal with that in my lifetime. And I certainly for our partners with the USDA. But here's some things going on all the time. Okay, trichomoniasis, we want to know about where these bulls come from. They better have official ID on them. That ain't up to y'all. We'll handle that, won't we, Dr. Davidson? And here's the other reason. I mean, quite honestly, I'm not going to go into this a little bit about our bailiwick, but if these boys want traceability, they'll get it. If their customers want traceability, they want to know where it comes from, they're going to get it. We might as well be providing it, ought to come from us, and we ought to be responsible for it. Now, the other thing from a state perspective, and what we're dealing with, this is what we're dealing with right now from a stockyard in North Alabama, Chelsea. They're doing a great job. They are writing down these metal ear tags. Isn't that nice? Isn't that sweet? And we're taking this. My secretary is taking this, and she's entering this thing, this database that we've got. Okay, oh, that's great. And when we get one of these trace performance exercises, she put that number in there manually, and it's worked so good. And then she goes over to Walmart and has some lunch, and she comes back and enters some more. And then we get one like this, and another stockyard now. Hold on. We can pick that out. She'll spend the rest of the afternoon working on this test. It's not a test chart, it's just a recording. It's a Dr. Smith, it's a signing. And then we got something like this right here. It's another stockyard. It's another recording. You know what? It's absolutely worthless. This document here is absolutely worthless. Yes, they record. The veterinarian recorded them. He wrote something down. You know what? He can't read that junk. So, and you know, we can go down there and tell him Dr. Custer, that's his name. He's a wonderful veterinarian. We're going to pull your accreditation. We're going to suspend your accreditation. You know what he'd say? Thank you. I can't wait to tell my wife I'm going to come back up here to this stockyard anymore. Thank you, Dr. Gray. We can't do that. We can't do that. We want to go in there and we're going to help him understand what his block of the chain is. Y'all, right? Here's your block of the chain, Dr. Custer. We want you to read that, and we want you to empower your stockyard here to capture that number electronically into a database that my lovely secretary can now enter into that, and we can trace these animals should we need to, right? Priorities. here's what real priorities are about. Me and my daughter ride some horses when we can, which is not enough. Establish official timeline. You've already done that. Check it off the line. Thank you so much. We now have an official timeline from the, in official capacity. Thank you, Secretary Eyeball. There he goes. Give him a hand. Right, come on. You gotta politic when you get a chance. I'm just saying. I was born tonight, but it wasn't last night. Katie, thank you. Establish an official time, and it's done. We do, Dr. Cobb, you're exactly right. Thank you for asking that question. We want to streamline what it means to become an AIM manager. You want to get tags into producers' hands, let the stockyards be empowered to do it if they want to. Let us veterinarian be an AIM manager if they want to do that. Because if they test cows today, they're not eligible for movement, they're just doing herd work for them. Well, next year when they retest them, they gotta have some way to read those tags, right? We want to empower the accredited veterinarian to be an AIM manager. They can do it. It's easy enough to do, okay? We want to finalize that state code. We want to determine the number of coupons as quickly as we can. And then we've asked, this is through the working group, back up. This is from the working group. We filtered this up. We want to ask them to develop a sandbox. I'll call it a litter box sometimes. I'll get them across that. For us states that got to report these numbers and report that, we want to be able to take a couple of trial and error systems, feed that into Dr. Aaron Scott, with this getting a report. And I'll tell you who will fix that will be our administrative staff. They'll tweak that, we'll get that fixed. But before we start doing this coupon system, doing this discounted tag, we're going to have a sandbox system. We requested that, okay? So this is the next slide. This is more cattle in Alabama. This is just a couple of weeks ago, and you can see that we are greening up. Listen, this herd of cows, listen to me now. This herd of cows heard that H-E-A-R-D, they heard that Dr. Frazier was stopping by with some 840 tags. And they lined up themselves to be tagged. Let me be tagged. That's what they're there. They come up to receive their new 840 tag. Isn't that amazing? That's what they did, Dr. Short in Alabama. They lined right up. You believe that? Amen, brother. Come on. This is where we want to, the rubber meets the road. These kind of cattle that need to be tagged, and there's production systems that need it. If you're a state animal health official, and you've not visited a couple of stockyards, or even maybe been to a place like Mr. Gene Lawless right here in front row, if you've not been to a place like his facility where they've been tagging cows with electronic ID for the last 8, 10 years, or close or more, and to a facility like that, listen, I understand we've got 25 head of cattle. Dr. Edmondson was at, we were at a meeting the other day, and the young man, he said, I got 12 cows. I got 12 cows, and you're telling me I've got to tag those cows. I don't have a head cage, I don't have any equipment, and I just might as well sell the cows and get out. I said, whoa, no. We never said you got to tag those cows. When you move them, you sell them, then those cattle need to be tagged. If you're swine, okay? And that particular young man, Mr. Gene, should not be threatening the way of life that you and decades or generations have enjoyed. We have got to move to the next level, and we're going to do that together. I'm always looking for an opportunity to be optimistic, and this is one of them. Thank you.
Maybe got time for one or two quick questions if anybody has them, then we'll have to move on to the business session.
Great.
You've done a great job. Thank you.
I want to thank all three of our speakers and all of you for coming and participating in this part. Now we're going to get ready to move into the business thing, unless anybody has anything else prior to that. Seeing none, Dave, if you, move and get We'll move on to our resolutions. Let me grab my piece of paper. Don't be long. So the important work we have now is to look over our resolutions. We're not under the gun on anything. They are available online, and we're going to briefly go over them. As I mentioned at the first of the meeting, we only have one that is sunsetting this year that without action will go away. During the business session, members are eligible to vote. One vote per agency. All are welcome to stay and participate in the discussion. Okay, that's good. Yeah. We can scroll through those, and we have not received any new resolutions. I'm going to find a call. If we have one, please have it on the drive. Maybe you can get it up here. First resolution we have is number 1. It was reaffirmed last year on outreach education efforts for the ADT framework. I'm not going to read through the whole thing since it was just done last year. But now is the time if anybody has anything to say about that one. Hearing none. And we'll move on to number 2. It was also amended last year, slaughter, surveillance, and ID collection. Y'all need to, maybe we could, I don't want to get you in trouble, we can enlarge it a little bit so they can see it a little better. And it's not a touchpad. I do that second best. He's used to service, but yeah, he got one. Make it up a little bigger. But I'm having trouble from here, so I'm kind of feeling a few of y'all might be having trouble reading those from there. A little better. Yeah, y'all can scroll back up to number 2. I don't want to rush anybody, but I don't want to waste your time either. So we will move on to resolution number 3. It was also reaffirmed in 2018. It addresses traceability funding. The actual resolution, in order to maintain the viability, health, and marketability of U.S. livestock, NIAA strongly supports the implementation of the Animal Disease Traceability Framework, urges the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture to ensure adequate funds are available for implementation of ADT. Number 4 was passed in 2014. NIAA resolutions automatically sunset when they have reached 5 years, which this one has. This was titled Livestock Movement Web Portal. It was about the creation of that portal, which is now known as InterstateLivestock.com. And so basically the creation which is addressed has been accomplished. So this will sunset, which is likely appropriate because it's been accomplished, unless I hear action. We don't have to take any action and it sunsets. Not seeing anybody ask for the mic. Move on to number 5. This one was a new resolution in 2017, so it's relatively new. The use of electronic identification devices and information management systems in state, federal, and tribal animal disease traceability programs. Scroll down to the resolution part. Try to read that right here. Okay. The NIAA strongly supports the increased use of any and all official electronic identification devices and associated information.
Steph, in that meeting before this. Did you?
So,
I think so. I've got to go get out this afternoon for a meeting.
Got coffee over there. Huh? They should have. I'm not a coffee drinker, so I don't want to have part of it. I usually don't either. It's warms, cold outside. So yeah.
It's sure as rock back home right now. Yeah. There it is.
Oh my God. Oh, you're kidding. Really? No kidding.
Pretty.
It is. I've never lived here.
I mean, it's not normal, but I've seen 30 inches on the 25th of May.
Really?
About 10, 12 years ago. Had a southwest.
Okay.
And down in the corner that they stole from the town.
Things haven't changed, have they?
Yeah. Yeah, it's we're pretty high elevation, 7,400 feet.
Yeah, interesting. Well, they were saying 2 feet of snow, right? Minnesota. White House conditions driving.
Did you drive down there?
I was going to fly, and then I just bad weather for Thursday. What is that? You figured it out?
Everybody sent you pictures.
Peanut butter. It's got stuff in it. I'm not sure what all that is. Yep. How much is it? It's only 18.
You're at lower elevation. Oh, really?
No thanks.
I think they got peanut butter out there.
That time,
Yeah, and I don't know if that's
they said they were going to announce it.
I guess that it might be. It's got something else in it, maybe honey. I don't know.
I want it on the list. It's not
But
good.
it was good. Yeah, my blood sugar was cranking down there too. Oh yeah, look at your store right now. I mean, it's right smack dab on top of you.
It won't take me. It's the Chelsea law.
Give me Christmas. Yeah, well,
That's the way you do it.
they just start blowing and sending it to Nebraska. That's because all those dang one-way roads Have you ever gone and seen the big boy or the 484? Like a Cheyenne, we've been there, not the trains.
So I can do this.
So you want
I
to
can leave. I've done it for
next
them.
to the Cheyenne, go into the yard
Find me. So I'll find me.
where it says no trespassing, go down that
I may
road.
have this
No
one pass.
trespassing against you going. 4 more signs that keep saying it. And then you get into the where they're building the cedar.
Is somebody sitting next to the gentleman from Georgia? Come on,
Or
Mr.
just saying,
Man.
no trespassing. And then you'll find out they've got a little counter where they'll sell you some stuff.
I'm squatting here. I can turn my computer on.
It's a real treat. I'm sure those signs, most no trespassing signs, I wouldn't say this stuff, but I'm sure those signs are just to see if you die. I wouldn't say that about any other trespassing sign I've ever seen. Oh, it's yeah. I don't know what the road is, but you have to. It's a little bit on the west side. It's good. It's ridges and goes underneath the tracks and stuff. It's not a bridge, it's a tunnel. But just before you go on the track, you left and you go down parallel to the tracks, across the tracks, and you get into barrel. I just and it's really spectacular. They've got one of the 484 big boys. Take them off. And I'm not going to be able to see it. If she only knew how good I was. If she only knew how good I was. But these are the big boys that they had to help to build the late 1930s, early 1960s, right? I just the largest training ever. All right. Well, I think we got it ironed out. I think we got it figured out. I would have, if I were you, I would have ducked and run.
What you were deciding.
So I figure I lost on one point. That's okay, I'll concede that. But I like it. I think the document, from what he understands, what he really hashed through on it. I think that's going to allow the flexibility to So he's going to allow.
How's your ankle?
Sounds like the doctor.
Your thighs are still there.
They weren't so hard to get
bags to be used for the question is, what if I've got one ranch that's got 1,500 animals and another ranch that's got 251,
Being in the garden all
another one
day.
that's got 237. How flexible? Oh, we're more
Then I got on the
flexible.
bike. He got on his bike and he rides his
So we
bike.
work out the plan together.
He says, you know, obviously my thigh muscles
The
are
question was, the cattle trip program has the opportunity, they're starving to run the dogs. And the really nice thing about cattle trails is cattle trails, the longer who they send bags to, and then where they go from there, and it's way more stringent than what is even contemplated here. So yeah. So how can we accommodate that within the first year, not have to the second year, 500,000? And it sounds like to me that can be so. Georgia one of the part of smaller 1,500 cattle trials a year, and that's the music 20 years. That's what I think. That's what Elder Smith, Ross, the other states. We're going to
Okay, we're going to start here in just a few minutes, so if you could just kind of work your way to your seats and get seated, and we'll begin here in just 2 or 3 minutes.
I'm really excited about it, so I think I'm still at a loss of the just so it wasn't any different than the issues I brought up, and I think that from a market perspective, it's being we're not going to be able to be consistent. They want to use some producers come across the piece. But anyway, I beat that horse on yes, so I'll stop taking that.
No, but that's
It really wasn't even up on that range. You just like go ahead. Go for it.
How are you doing?
Well, you're not talking about moments, right?
this is breakfast.
I mean, that was, well, I mean, in the bigger picture, it sounded like you were
Yeah, I'm gonna put you to sleep.
Like,
I might grab one of those. I might grab one of those.
It better be while you're still around. Isn't that called peanut butter on peanut butter?
That's what I do every night.
That's why I get my kids.
Our neighbor, Vern Whitaker up there, he never did burn one. He died 25 years ago, but he used to put peanut butter on tomatoes. And that's the only person I've ever seen do that. It's not bad, it's just strange.
Well, good afternoon. Again, as I mentioned earlier this morning, in talking with many of you and just in passing comments from several of you, I know all of you have really enjoyed the program so far, and I'm confident that this afternoon will not disappoint because I've been on the phone with these speakers too, and I know what they're getting ready to talk about, and I think you're going to find it very beneficial. Just a couple of quick notes in terms of housekeeping. Again, for the board of directors, just a reminder, we will be starting at 4:30 sharp, and we do have a presentation and have someone on the phone, and so we do need to begin very promptly at 4:30. Want to once again just draw attention to the sponsors, and be sure to give those people, tell them when you see them, thank you, and we certainly appreciate all that they've done. When we get done here today, and I'll remind you of this later, but again, we are starting up tomorrow in your program. You'll see we're going to start at 8 o'clock sharp right here. And lastly, we will be using Slido this afternoon to submit questions. And again, your code number is hashtag E012, okay? 012. Okay, well, to begin off our afternoon session with just a little different perspective on alternative proteins. We heard some this morning, but to provide us a different look is Dr. Tarte from the Meat Science Department at Iowa State University, and he's going to be talking to us about the present state and the future outlook. Dr. Tarte, welcome. We're very appreciative that you're here with us at the National Institute for Animal Agriculture. Thank you for being here. Please give him a round of applause.
Thank you. I appreciate that introduction. Well, it's really great to be here. I'll just stand behind the podium, or better yet. So it's really great to be here. Everybody hear me okay? Okay. So thanks for sitting there listening to me. Most of my students would not want to do that. So today what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna give you kind of an overview of what some of these so-called alternative proteins are. I'm not gonna delve deeply into things such as the environmental impact of some of these. Truth is, we don't know to a degree because they haven't been commercialized in mass, in a large enough scale, most of them, for us to really have an idea. So I'd like to start out, there's some of the things that I'm going to talk about. We're going to talk about the meat. So because what is meat becomes a fundamental tenet of this discourse, and it's been in the news a lot, and we all have an opinion, and it matters, right? It's also happening with our friends in the dairy industry, for example, with the term milk, term butter, and all those kinds of things that do have definitions. And, you know, we're being faced now with technologies that honestly 30, 40 years ago would have been inconceivable. We could not have conceived how far technological advances have brought us to the point where the regulations begin to look a little obsolete. Then I'm going to delve into meat protein alternatives and talk about some of those, give you a quick snapshot of what size of the market, you know, and discuss specific ones, the major ones. And then I'm going to give you my opinions on what are some of the key long-term success factors. I'm not here to give you a lot of answers, because there are more questions than answers, and I think we all have questions, and many of you are very well versed in this topic, I'm sure. So I'm not, so to many of you, I'll be preaching to the choir. But these are just some of my perspectives on how I view this, and what the future might look like as we move forward. Okay. So first of all, there is a definition for meat, and it's right there, and it's defined as the part of the muscle of any cattle, sheep, swine, or goats, which is skeletal, or which is found in the tongue, diaphragm, heart, or esophagus. So skeletal muscle and meat from tongue, diaphragm, heart, or esophagus are considered meat. There's also a definition, I didn't put it here, but there's a definition for poultry meat. So when I talk in this talk, when I talk meat, I'm going to be fundamentally talking about edible tissue of mammalian, avian, and fish species, using a broader definition.